I'm Rob Licuria, senior editor at Gold Derby, here with Chris Chalk. Chris, listen, how good is this show, Perry Mason? It's just finished, but I could watch it again. It's a great show.
Well, I'll tell you, it is rewatchable because it's not so stressful. It's such a simple story. You know, even with the abundance of characters and things happening, it feels like it's almost going against the breakneck pace of like, go, 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 go. It's just saying, hey, watch these people do this thing and we've got you. It feels like a blanket to me when I watch the show. Even with the coloring of the show, it's just so like chill. It's not offensive. It's not trying to hurt me. It's not trying to tell me what to think. It's just offering me an experience. And I really appreciate that about the entire thing from top to bottom.
Yeah, I love how it's like a portal in time. The costume designer and production designer have done an amazing job, and you're all just kind of luxuriating in this space, and we're trying to work out what the hell's going on with this case. It's very well done.
Yeah. And I do love the shout out to the costume designer, first and second season, but Catherine Adair in the second season, she thinks the way I think, which is like, I go very logical. So I go very like, is it left brain to go right brain? So I have to get all the logic, get all the math done so that I can be free. And she would come and say, Chris, I don't think it's green today. I don't think he can wear green because it just doesn't feel like his soul. And I was like, oh my God, have I met my soulmate in you? Like to have so many artists who come together and see this at so many different angles. I think HBO did a great job of hiring an incredible team.
Yeah, super lucky. And then we get to watch this character and his journey, because he's a smart and streetwise and initially quite lighthearted and warm guy. One of the favorite characters of season one, but by the end of season two, he has also seen his fair share of trauma as well. So what did you think of that arc for season two?
I remember because we had new showrunners, so it becomes like they have to meet the character. And we already knew the character. So it was really, especially the first and second episode, we were all still like, okay, what's the language? I remember when they first brought a script, he had a like 2-page monologue. I went, oh no, that's not. Paul Drake, he would never, this guy would never say more than he needs to say in any space. Maybe when he's hanging out with the fellas, smoking cigarettes, he would talk a little bit of shit, but mostly he is an observer. He's trying not to get in trouble. And we had I think it was at episode 3, we came to the understanding that something had to break him out of that performance. It's because it's a performance. It's a veil. I think W.E.B. Du Bois or Du Bois, depending on how you like to pronounce it, he talks about the veil that Black people in America have to wear in order to perform in different spaces. And that's Paul. You see Paul with the DA, he's got a certain thing. You see Paul with Strickland, he's got a looser thing. You see Paul with Perry, kind of a more liberal white guy, he's got a thing. But then you see him with his people, and he's a whole other guy. He's still holding on a bit. But as his world starts to dissipate, which is what we were talking about, as he loses control and becomes more than just like this docile, complacent guy, who is he behind all of the stuff, behind all of these walls that he's created?
That wearing the veil is so obviously so prevalent these days. And it's so interesting that we watch someone like Paul back in the 30s, when a lot of us don't have really any idea as to what that might have been like to live in that time. It's so interesting, hey, that things really haven't changed that much at all. It's kind of sad, actually.
I think when the first season was out in the States and it was COVID, came out when COVID happened, but it's also when they were just shooting Black people willy-nilly. And we was watching the show and I was like, oh shit, this is a little sadder than I think we intended it to be. I think we just revealed ourselves to ourselves. Like we've showed that this country that's built on all this awful shit is gonna stay awful until we deal with the awful shit. And it hasn't changed. I mean, it's changed how much you can get away with saying, but the consequence is still the same. You'll get killed. You'll get disappeared, and no one will talk about you after a month. That's what Paul's trying to avoid. Paul is like, especially once he has his kid, he's like, I cannot disappear. I cannot leave this family in the lurch on some justice but that's that struggle of like, but this is what I'm good at.
Yeah.
Like I want to be good at something. I want to be seen for something. And it's weird that Perry Mason, this white man who called him a nigga in the first season, sees him. He really fully sees Paul. I mean, not fully, but as much as I think a guy back then can see a black person, it's like he understands what Paul is good at. So Paul's a little bit addicted to the mania of Perry. Oh, it's such a
I
tight,
love that. That is so
squeeze.
interesting to me. That's what I want to see. You talked about the new showrunners, Jack Amiel and Michael Begler. They came on for season 2. What impact did they have on the cast? Because they said they wanted to let the sunshine in, and I really love that about season 2. It's lighter and it's a bit more accessible.
Yeah.
What did you think?
I think Jack brings lightness. He does. It's very logical. Knows every fact. Oh, please don't ask him a question about anything unless you want 16 minutes of facts. And Michael brings this, whom I like. I'm obsessed with Michael because he brings so much heart, which is more so once we got to that stage, it's just like, I want to know how we're going to break this guy. And I want to see him busted wide open. So it was nice to have this team come in. And the first season, what a great, place to start this. But they did add fun, really, like a little lightness, a little dimension, I would say, in particular dimension to all of the characters. But Paul, I remember the first time we met, they said almost dismissively, they didn't mean it that way, but they almost said, he's got to be more than just a guy that hates racism. Like, we can't put a black guy on TV who just hates racism. And I was like, oh, shit. Yeah. I mean, you saw it before I did. Shame on me, but you're right. Yeah, this guy's got to. And that became my fight. I think at the end of the first season, I said to who was our EP at the time, I guess he still is, but he was a director, Tim Van Patten. I said, but who is Perry Mason when it's black people? Like, he's saving a lot of white lives, but he's going to put the same effort into, different races. Is he? And then look at the second season. He said, absolutely. He might not do it. He might not know exactly how to do it consciously as we would in 2023. But this guy said, no, I'm here for justice. And I think that also proves a lot to Paul, because Paul could be done with Perry at any moment, but Perry continues to be so different than every other white man that's ever, that him or his grandparents have ever met. Every narrative he's ever seen and heard and lived through. And then he sees this one beacon of light going back to light, who's like, but there's got to be a way, man. There's got to be a way to fix all this. Boy, we need more of that, don't we? Whew, heartbreaking.
I know it is. We need a heck of a lot more of that. Chris, the one takeaway that I took away from season 2, there's so many, but really for me was finding your people and your team. Because by the back half, Paul, Della, Perry, and even Pete, it felt like they really clicked. And I love that. Am I onto something? Do you think that was really where you guys were headed for the end of season 2?
Well, I'll even go this far as it's family. Chosen and, the real deal, which is at every turn, Paul is being challenged with who he is protecting, he is going with. And it's like choosing my community as a family, choosing my actual family. But then there's just choosing me, Clara, and the baby, because that's all he gives a shit about.
Oh, yeah.
I don't care about Mo. I do, but I don't. He didn't come up until we needed him, which is why Mo has so much power over him. Like unwritten scenes being like, oh, but it's funny to see you here now, Mr. Big Shot, Like Paul really wanted to transcend some sort of safety line. And that's why he has this new family, Strickland being the cousin he hates, like really, really hates, because that guy, what a mess. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It is about choosing your family. I mean, yeah.
When I was so pissed off that Pete, was the one that, told everybody about the gun. And there's that scene in the office with you and and Shay just going at it as your characters, obviously. And I just lapped that up. That's what I want to see more of. Was that fun to do on that day when you were
Oh,
shooting?
absolutely. Shay and I never get to work together like
Yeah.
in heightened scenes because, you know, any other moment I had to be subservient because I'm behaving by etiquette. But in that office, I can do whatever the hell I want to do. And I have been wanting, Paul has been wanting to knock this guy out. He's just created havoc in my life year after year. This guy's just been a pain in my ass. And I remember Shay and I were like, just go for it. I'm going to catch whatever you throw. You just keep going. And they had to pull us back a few times. They're like, okay, we're not going to get the shot if you're in each other's faces. If you, there's a camera, guys, there's a camera. But like his willingness to be ugly and then my willingness to destroy my character's sense of self and risk death. Like that's risking death. There's no safe space. Let's not be, you know, there's that office is safe, but it ain't. If I were to knock that man out, that's jail or death. That's it. Hey, Strickland, where you get that black eye? That N-word over there, he's gone. You know what I mean? But that is how undone and disgusted he is. And then to force these two assholes to work together, that shows how important Perry is to both of them. Because they both kind of suck up their egos and go, all right, you know, I work with this sack of trash.
And we've all been there, don't you? I mean, we've all been there in our lives.
Brother, yeah. Where we're
I
like,
felt
okay.
that moment. Like, there's so many great moments that I want to talk about with you, but that one, it seems so simple, and yet I can't get it out of my head because I've been there where I'm just like, I want to knock your teeth out, and yet I'm not gonna do it.
Yeah, except I'm gonna just say, and he wants to knock my teeth out just as well. I mean, imagine 1930s. 1930s, you still believe you're the greatest race that ever lived. And you're poor. You're a poor white man. You don't have any other favor. And then you got this black guy dressed nicer than you, put together, got the, you know, Paul is very clear about, you know, performing a certain sort of, and then you got this well-dressed black dude yelling at you. Like, we can't understand it in 2023, but you know, that ain't, he's gonna talk about that for the rest of his life. Like, one day in this room, this fucking colored guy yelled at me. Can you believe it? They should still be slaves. You know, like that's the conversations they're having in the 30s, you know? That's how close it is though.
He would have been on Tucker Carlson's show talking about it had he still been on the air. We'll see. I don't know. Maybe it might happen one day. You know, Paul, though, he went through a lot. So there's a great moment after the beatdown. I think it's episode 5. He goes back home to his real safe space with Clara, and he wants to know whether he's still good. That broke me. What was that like to do that on that day?
That was a very upsetting day. That whole sequence of just falling apart and not trusting the one person you trust. You know, it's like he put Clara at such a distance, just put her so far away, but he wants to use her for what he wants to use her for. But if he tells her, he taints her. If he tells her, it's poison. So who else can he tell? So all he can do is ask these vague questions and hope for the pacifier. Please, honey, just hold me, shut up, be my blankie, be my safe space, and don't ask why. Because if you ask why, you might tell me a truth that I don't want to hear. You know, and I think Paul he does want to be good. I think it starts to change towards the end of the second season. It gets very gray. It gets really blurry about what he wants to do. But like everything he has done up until this point has been protecting his community. He's the cop. When he was a cop, he was the guy they sent in, and he would diffuse. He'd like, hey, the white cops will come here if you don't knock it off. So like, go to your room. And I think Perkins existed in the first season, but like, he's the guy that brings turkeys to Christmas. So what? He sells a little bit of drugs and he causes a little bit of havoc, but like, he's better than the DA. He gets things done in our community. So to be betrayed by a black person, you know, Paul went on the other side because a black man made him do it. He said, you're going to get dirty like me. When you would think it would be Perry who's like, get dirty, be filthy. Perry's like, you can keep your morals, you know, you can just be a little. This man made me beat a child. And that boy was so small that I really meant it when I was like, am I okay? Like, what, is there a point to my existence now that I've gone this far?
Yeah.
And she, reluctantly, frightfully says, you're okay,
Yeah.
which isn't even the best answer.
No.
It's like, give me more than that.
Yeah, but it's real, eh? It's real. Like that's what. If it was really melodramatic, I would have come out of that moment, I suppose. And to see Clara and Paul kind of just being themselves, and her kind of giving him that space, meant a lot. And that it actually really then under whatever the word is, by the next episode when he's on the stakeout, and then you go through that whole sequence where the episode ends and you're on the street. So a night shoot, you're on your own. What was that? Do you remember that day or that night vividly?
Gosh, yeah, we were out in San Pedro, and it was a very rough night of shooting as well, so, which worked. I was like, I love how awful this night is. This is the worst night to have, like the best time to be a mess. I almost got hit by a car that night because somebody was backing up and not paying attention. It was like, our radios weren't working, but I was like, this is the frantic nature to put Paul. I think I wasn't sleeping well. So it was kind of this perfect storm to really, which maybe they did on purpose now that I'm thinking about it. But it was a perfect loneliness. Like you're saying, he's on that street, car's gone, look back, his car's wide open, could have lost that. No Perry, no Della, no wife, no nothing. He's all by himself, and he effed up. He screwed up. He ruined the whole thing because he didn't trust anybody. It was awesome. And it's embarrassing. Like this guy who, he's got his tie. Well, his tie is not up anymore. At that point, he's swollen eyes, lips down. He's slowly becoming, he's like transforming into the doppelganger he hates.
Yeah.
But boy, doesn't he don't do it. It's almost looking back at his former self, like that guy could have done it. That guy would have had his shit together. That guy would have, I don't even think Paul, I think you can tell Paul's losing his mind because he lets his wife help. I was like, oh my God, you guys are crazy.
Yeah. When they're staking that together, I'm like, what on earth are they doing? But I loved it as well. Because it kind of,
I loved it. Because who else does he trust?
Exactly.
It's like, speaking of family, I'll go to the one person who will give me a hard time, but we'll get it done together. And I know we'll get it done together. And she trusts me and I trust her, and she can stop me, and I need her. Boy, don't I need her. When she comes, it's like, when she comes up to the car, oh my God, I felt it. Well, one, I'm in love with her. I'm in love with Jara Kilpatrick. I just love her. She always offers, she gives so much. It's like an unsung hero. She's always like, let's make it deeper. Let's make it dirtier. Let's make it darker. Let's make it more intimate. Even from the dance scene until then, she's like, let's sink into this so that you cannot separate these two characters. You forget Chris and Jara. It's Paul and Clara for life. You know what I mean? And we really did approach it like it's me and you. The whole season, I gave the showrunners a hard time. I was like, you better take care of my wife. Don't have her cutting carrots in another scene. You better, we really had each other's back in a way that really supported. I mean, the script supported that, and we supported the script in turn, because that love, to me, I think is almost one of the more important things to the show, in my opinion.
Yeah.
To see two people who are going through perhaps the hardest stuff, minus the heroin addictions and the murder, but like a couple really trying to fight through, a Black couple in the 30s who don't believe in divorce, trying their best to just stay human in this inhumane world was our fight. It's like, it was our fight. And Paul was failing. He was failing bad. And to have her come help him was essentially going, I got you, buddy. I'm pissed off with you. You're being just like them, but I got you.
Yeah, man. And that feels so lived in and authentic to me. From anyone who's in a long-term relationship knows that sometimes you just want to tell that person to go somewhere else, but most of the time I've got your back. And that's
Most
so
of the
nice.
time.
It's
That's
so cool.
true. Every time No, go.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, like, there's the big elephant in the room is, are we gonna get a season 3 or not? Like, I'm waiting for the announcement. Is it ever gonna happen?
I don't know that I'm supposed to know the answer to that question.
Okay, good.
I
That's a
do
good
know
answer.
the answer to that question, but I don't know if I'm supposed to know the answer to that question.
Fair enough.
I would hope so.
I would hope so too. I
Because
don't see why not.
the door got better. I mean, we opened the door. I mean, especially considering, like, think of this. The gap we had was so evil. Like, to have COVID happen and then to shoot our show 2 years later. Oh, and to be able, this is why I love my cast and crew and our showrunners and the company and HBO, because, and still, we did a great job.
Yeah.
New showrunners, new costume designer. It's essentially a new show where only the actors knew the characters. Everybody deserves everything, all the love in the world, because that is a pretty impossible task. And I know a lot of shows had to deal with that same stress. So, hats off to every single one of them. But I'm on this show and it was hard. It was a lot of crying days and it was a lot of changing scripts around. I thought it felt so collaborative because of the chaos. In fact, it was incredibly collaborative this season. Like, more so, I was like, wait a second, am I an EP? Like, somebody help me out here. Like, wait a second, I don't know if y'all are paying me for all this work I'm doing. Wait a minute.
I'm just checking, but I'm the supporting actor on a show. I don't know.
I'm looking down the list and I'm so far down here.
What the fuck? Yeah.
But we did have an entire company. I don't know if they did. I don't know if it was, I mean, I do think me, Matthew, and Juliet, we lend ourselves to this. But everybody who came in, guest star, co-star, was like, how can we make it better? What can I do to help? And we would give everyone permission to, like, be free, talk to Michael, talk to the writers. If you feel something, if it's more authentic to you, we are going to accept it, because that's all we're looking for, is the truth. We're just looking for, as close to this truth as we can get with this circumstances. I'm sure there's a greater truth, which is, that's on HBO to see a season 3 and let us do it.
Oh man, I hope so. But in the meantime, congratulations on some great work, Chris, and thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much, brother.